advise possible exposure.
Tavares police said they're releasing this difficult footage of an officer who is now doing okay as a
Cheshunt Hotel protest, when British streets turn volatile. Good evening, and welcome back to UK Corners, where we dissect the political theatre that shapes modern Britain with the precision it deserves. If you're new here, do hit that subscribe button now. Trust me, you'll want to stay informed about what's really happening in our corridors of power and on our streets. Tonight, we're diving into a story that encapsulates everything wrong with how immigration policy collides with public sentiment in contemporary Britain. Picture this: a Friday evening in Hertfordshire, where what began as a planned demonstration outside a migrant hotel in Cheshunt descended into absolute pandemonium. But here's where it gets interesting, and this is precisely why you need to subscribe to UK Corners, because this isn't just another protest story. This is a masterclass in how legal battles, government overreach, and public fury create a perfect storm that threatens the very fabric of civil discourse in our nation. The Bell Hotel in Epping, remember that name, because it's about to become synonymous with everything that's gone spectacularly wrong with Britain's asylum seeker accommodation strategy. After the Home Office secured a court victory to reverse a previous judgment that would have shut down the hotel's use for housing asylum seekers, British citizens flocked to the Broxbourne area like moths to a flame. And what happened next? Well, that's where this story takes a rather sinister turn. Groups of demonstrators, faces deliberately covered, were seen leaving Cheshunt and making their way toward the Bell Hotel in Epping. Now, if you're a regular viewer, and if you're not, that subscribe button is still there waiting for you. You'll know that mass protesters rarely herald peaceful outcomes. The authorities, recognizing the volatile situation brewing, issued a Section 60AA directive. For those unfamiliar with police powers, this essentially gives officers the authority to stop and search anyone in a designated area without the usual requirement of reasonable suspicion. But let's talk about what really happened here, shall we? This wasn't just a spontaneous uprising of concerned citizens. This was a culmination of a legal chess match between Yvette Cooper's Home Office and local authorities, with ordinary Britons caught in the crossfire. 3 senior judges ruled that Cooper's office had the authority to intervene in a case involving a temporary injunction regarding the Essex town. The Home Office, alongside Samani Hotels, the property's owner, had desperately attempted to appeal a high court decision that would have prevented 138 asylum seekers from being housed there after September 12th. Here's what the mainstream media won't tell you, and why you absolutely must subscribe to UK Corners for this level of analysis. This represents a fundamental breakdown in the social contract between government and governed. When citizens feel so disenfranchised by their own representatives that they resort to covering their faces and marching through the streets, we're witnessing something far more dangerous than mere civil disobedience. The scenes that unfolded were nothing short of extraordinary. Hundreds of people marching from Cheshunt to Epping, confronting police officers, with at least 2 arrests made as tensions reached boiling point. Assistant Chief Constable Glenn Pavlin's statement was illuminating. We will always seek to facilitate peaceful protest for all groups. But notice a caveat, and this is crucial, he continued. However, people who try to hide who they are pose a threat of antisocial conduct and crime, which goes beyond the bounds of reasonable protest. Now, here's where the story becomes particularly revealing about the state of modern Britain. The protesters weren't just angry about immigration policy, they were furious with the entire establishment. Shouts of "Stop the boats" and "Keir Starmer is a W***** echoed through the streets, while demonstrators called police officers scum and traitors. When a young protester was detained, a woman was heard calling a female police officer vile. This, ladies and gentlemen, is what happens when democratic processes fail to reflect public sentiment. And if you're finding this analysis valuable, which you should be, that subscribe button is your gateway to more content that cuts through the political noise with this level of clarity. The legal machinations behind this story are particularly instructive. The Home Office's victory in court wasn't just about housing asylum seekers. It was about asserting central government authority over local concerns. The temporary injunction that would have shut down the Bell Hotel represented local democracy in action, communities saying they'd had enough. But Westminster, in its infinite wisdom, decided otherwise. What's truly fascinating is how this entire episode illustrates the growing disconnect between Britain's political class and its citizens. The mass protesters heading from Cheshunt to Epping weren't engaging in some far-right conspiracy. They were ordinary Britons who felt their voices weren't being heard through conventional channels. When democratic processes fail, people inevitably seek alternative means of expression. The police response, while professionally handled, reveals the impossible position law enforcement finds itself in. Officers are expected to facilitate peaceful protests while maintaining order, protect asylum seekers while managing public anger, and enforce laws that many citizens fundamentally reject. It's an unenviable position that speaks to broader systemic failures in how we manage immigration and community cohesion. Pavlin's promise that officers would treat everyone in a fair and approachable manner, while being strict in their approach to those refusing to remove face coverings, perfectly encapsulates this tension. The police are being asked to be simultaneously accommodating and authoritarian, a contradiction that inevitably leads to friction on our streets. What makes this story particularly significant, and why UK Connors subscribers get insights you won't find elsewhere, is how it demonstrates a collision between legal technicalities and democratic sentiment. The 3 senior judges who ruled in favor of the Home Office weren't necessarily wrong in law, but they were spectacularly tone-deaf to public feeling. This is governance by judicial decree rather than democratic consent. The Bell Hotel saga represents everything that's broken about Britain's approach to immigration. We have a system where courts make decisions that communities must live with, where central government overrides local concerns, and where citizens feel so powerless that they resort to street demonstrations and civil disobedience. It's a recipe for social fragmentation that serves nobody's interests. The protesters' journey from Cheshunt to Epping wasn't just a geographical movement. It was a symbolic march from frustration to confrontation. These weren't extremists or agitators. They were people who felt betrayed by their own system of government. The fact that they felt compelled to cover their faces speaks volumes about their perception of how dissent is treated in modern Britain. Subscribe to UK Connors now if you haven't already, because this story is far from over. The Bell Hotel will continue housing asylum seekers, the community tensions will persist, and the fundamental questions about immigration policy remain unanswered. We'll be following every development, every legal challenge, and every political maneuver that shapes this ongoing crisis. The arrests made during the protests, at least 2 that we know of, represent just the tip of the iceberg. When Assistant Chief Constable Pavlin spoke about protecting our neighborhood, he inadvertently highlighted the crux of the problem. Whose neighborhood is it, exactly? The asylum seekers being housed there? The local residents who object? The government officials making policy from Westminster? This question cuts to the heart of modern British identity and belonging. The confrontations between demonstrators and police officers weren't just about one hotel in Essex. They were about the future of British democracy itself. When citizens resort to calling police officers traitors and scum, we're witnessing the breakdown of civic trust that underpins any functioning society. This isn't partisan politics. It's institutional failure on a grand scale. What's particularly striking about this episode is how it exposes a hollow nature of contemporary political discourse. Politicians speak about managing migration and community cohesion while completely failing to address the underlying tensions that explode into street confrontations. The Bell Hotel protest is a symptom of much deeper pathologies in British governance. The Section 60 AA directive issued by authorities represents the increasing militarization of public order management. When police require special powers to manage what should be routine democratic protests, we're acknowledging that normal civic discourse has broken down. This should concern everyone, regardless of their views on immigration policy. And here's what you won't hear from the mainstream media. Subscribe to UK Connors for analysis like this. The Cheshunt to Epping March represents a new form of political expression in Britain. Citizens are creating their own forms of democratic participation when official channels fail them. It's messy, it's confrontational, and it's entirely predictable given the circumstances. The legal victory claimed by the Home Office and Simone hotels might be technically correct, but it's politically catastrophic. When government policy requires police protection to implement, when communities feel compelled to take to the streets, when citizens cover their faces to express dissent, these are signs of democratic failure, not success. This story encapsulates everything I've been warning about on UK Connors, and if you're not already subscribed, you're missing crucial analysis of British politics. We're witnessing the consequences of years of political disconnect, where policy is made in isolation from public sentiment, where legal processes override democratic concerns, and where citizens feel increasingly alienated from their own government. The shouts of "Stop the boats" that echoed through Hertfordshire weren't just about immigration policy. They were cries of democratic frustration from people who feel their voices don't matter. When Keir Starmer is denounced in such visceral terms, when police officers are called traitors, when young protesters are arrested for expressing dissent, we're seeing the symptoms of a system in crisis. The Bell Hotel will continue operating as an asylum-seeker accommodation facility. The protesters will return to their homes nursing grievances that haven't been addressed, and the fundamental problems that created this confrontation will remain unresolved. This is governance by attrition, not by consent, and it's unsustainable in any democratic society. So there you have it, the Cheshunt Hotel protest in all its messy, confrontational, deeply troubling reality. This isn't just about one hotel in Essex. It's about the future of British democracy itself. The masked marchers heading from Cheshunt to Epping weren't just protesting immigration policy. They were protesting the entire system that has failed to represent their concerns through normal democratic channels. Make sure you're subscribed to UK Connors, because this story will continue evolving, the tensions will persist, and the questions about democratic representation and immigration policy will only become more urgent. We'll be here, cutting through the political spin with the analysis British politics desperately needs. Until next time, this has been UK Connors, where British politics gets the scrutiny it deserves.